Every day seems to bring fresh reports of cyber attacks, with US and British officials recently lashing out at alleged government-backed hacking by Russia and China. Here in Australia, there's been a dramatic escalation with thousands of cyber attacks on military, government and major corporate computer networks by foreign powers and organised crime. Now, cyber security is one of the nation's top priorities. As Margot O'Neill reports, there are also claims that cyber thieves have stolen classified material from the Defence Department.
Right now, Australia is under cyber attack.
We now have war in cyberspace, and it's already going on. Primarily it's silent, it's not disclosed. My view is that cyber war is going to become the dominant form of warfare in this century.
Which one of the following scenarios do you think is most likely? A computer attack that steals secret weapons designs, hacking data from one of the world's most vital financial institutions, or the corruption of a nuclear facility? It's a trick question because they've all happened in the last 18 months. Last year, computer attacks suspended the operation of parts of Iran's main uranium enrichment plant. A few months ago, information reportedly tracking global money flows was hacked from the IMF. The US also admits that earlier this year, secret files were stolen on its new Joint Strike Fighter jet, the same jet fighter Australia has on order. In all, 24,000 files were stolen from the computer systems of the giant defence contractor Lockheed Martin.
A certain large Asian power, it's been alleged, stole the design plans for them. What it means is that we lost somewhere between 10 to 20 years of technological advancement. We lost tens of billions of dollars in research and development advancement.
The list of known cyber attacks is staggering. The Pentagon alone faces 6 million attacks every day and rising. Many are lone wolves, most are rebuffed, but some are quietly, dangerously successful and increasingly bear the mark of foreign governments. Like when a classified US computer network used to help run the wars in Iraq and Afghanistan was penetrated for months without detection. After reports that Australian ministerial and prime ministerial computers had been hacked earlier this year and several thousand confidential emails accessed, ASIO warned that cyber espionage is being used on a massive scale against Australia.
It's pretty clear our own Defence Department has been successfully hacked, even though the government doesn't want to explicitly recognise that. What I can say is that the number of attacks against defence system has gone up astronomically in the last 5 years, that some classified material has clearly been stolen or compromised. I can't tell you specifically what they are because I don't know. And it's of sufficient concern for Defence to do something about this quite quickly. That is setting up a number of agencies to coordinate against this, and they've only done this in the last 12 to 18 months. So that tells you it's gone from a marginal issue for them to a top priority.
The federal government opened Australia's first cyber security operations centre last year.
Cyberspace is a battlefield itself.
But the more recent elevation of cybersecurity into the ANZUS Treaty raises many questions, like what kind of cyber attack triggers treaty obligations?
We've had certain US leaders describe attacks as including things like when people tried to deface the Pentagon's website. That's the cyber equivalent of graffiti. Does that mean that Australia, has to deploy out Navy ships to help defend us in that situation?
Tim Scully is the former head of Australia's Cyber Security Operations Centre.
A cyber attack where denial or destruction of a system that causes havoc in a country, for example, taking down an element of critical infrastructure that has effect on people's lives, could trigger a treaty response.
The problem is proving who's doing what. Is it a nation state, or a teenage hacker, or a terrorist?
An incoming missile has, we say, a return address, okay? But a cyber virus may not. You simply don't know whose fingers are on the keyboard.
Consider the case of the computer worm Stuxnet, described as the first cyber weapon of mass destruction, unleashed against Iran's nuclear program last year. It caused centrifuges to spin out of control even while computer readings registered normal. It's since been sourced by most experts to the US and Israel, but there's no proof. Similarly, many of the attacks on Western government and military institutions have been privately blamed on China. Allegations Beijing routinely denies, while also claiming to be the victim of Western cyber attacks. The sheer scale of the problem is hard to grasp. It's estimated that 50,000 new pieces of malicious software are discovered on the internet every day. Add that to countries like the US, the UK, China, Russia and others rushing to develop new cyber weapons, not just for defence, but for a first strike. Former intelligence analyst Dr. Carl Ungerer believes it's time for international cyber war arms control.
I think there does have to be a dialogue and a negotiation with countries like China and Russia and others, in which we sit down and talk through what the rules of the game are going to look like. Yes, my understanding is there has been some informal conversations along those lines. I think the next step over the next 12 months, maybe 2 years, is going to be the formalisation of those negotiations.
The federal government is due to release a white paper on cybersecurity next year. Margot O'Neill, Lateline.